research and data coming. Data is the new oil. It is the currency by which the world operates, and increasingly so in these past few years. As a statistics major, I understand the importance of data and how these facts and observations that we collect are used for analysis to make informed decisions. There was a quote from Women in Mining Africa that we cannot manage what we do not measure. And it shows that yes, even though it is with data that we can see that yes, women have a significant presence in ASM, it's with data that we can observe multiple things that would help us to make informed decisions. So research is no longer restricted to just journals and papers, but it's a tool for making informed decision making, and statistics now translating to policies and social change. So research as a tool, evidence-based advocacy. So research is not just academic, it's not just people typing papers and articles. Of course, that is very important, but now it is the primary engine for policy reform. It is a tool that can be used to force policy changes. Without data, the contributions of women and even youth in ASM would be one, ignored, and remain anecdotal by government. So for example, data censuses can be used to map women miners and then proving that yes, these people are actually significant and proving their economic contribution to the state. And then using these data, we can now lobby for gender inclusive mining codes that address the needs of female miners. We can identify the gaps, both the data gaps and the vulnerability that these women faces and most of the issues that they have and how to close those gaps. So the role of research, number one, like I said, closing the data gap, actually advocating for women by one, including them and noting that yes, women are primarily of importance in ASM, and conducting censuses that will prove that yes, women are primary economic drivers, forcing governments to include them in formalization plans. Also, diffusion of innovation, which means that people who are already educated about these things, particularly youth, educated youth, returning to ASM communities and transferring this knowledge, such as legal compliance, safer mineral processing, business management, and so much more. And then policy advocacy. So the main purpose of data is that we are taking raw information and we are converting it into insights that would now be used to make policy reforms and that would be used to actually make social change. So data showing that women reinvest up to 90% of their income into families is used to lobby for gender inclusive finance rather than generic microloans. So this is an example of how the data that we collect and then analyze can now be used to lobby for appropriate policies that would favor every member of the ASM community. So there are many research focus areas that can be delved into. One of it is demographics. So who are the minors? What is their age structure, education levels? And Dr. Comfort emphasized the importance of data and research earlier on, and she also emphasized, many of the research questions that researchers could go into. So, for example, knowing these people, like, okay, who are they? What is the proportion of youth in the ASM community? What is the proportion of women, as we have seen it is data that provides us that yes, women make up about 40 to 50% of the labor force. Knowing the age structure, okay, how many youth are gradually moving in, what is their education levels, family dependence ratios, many more things to actually tailor support programs that are relevant to each person. So project MSAFE to conducting safety audits to identify specific hazards for women, including pit stability and mercury handling. Also financial flows, analyzing how underpaid and undervalued women are even in the industry, tracking income and reinvestment, showing that yes, where is the money going to? And we have seen that women reinvest up to 90% of their income back into family well-being. So how can policies be made to actually favor them? So I'll be moving to the role of youth in in support and transformation of artisanal mining. As we all know, the world is getting younger, maybe not in age, but in culture and globalization. Gen Z is the rave of the town. With technological innovations, the youth are taking over. So the youth is going to be very important and of huge support in the transformation of artisanal mining. So, for example, the NextGen initiative empowers young professionals to bridge the gap between traditional practices and modern standards, bringing digital literacy, environmental awareness, and a business mindset that shifts the sector from survival to sustainability. And we also have technological innovation, which is primarily going to be the most important or one of the most important in actually driving change, because we see that technology is taking over. How the world looked 5 years ago, 10 years ago is much different from how it looks now. We have AI, we have, these things that are now helping. And even in relation to data, we now have big data, we now have data analysis, machine learning, all these things that could be used to further help the industry and further transform the future of artisanal mining. So we have young entrepreneurs that are launching startups that solve many ASM challenges. So there can be a structure of, we have data, and then we have the researchers asking the right question and then using these data analysis to turn this data into insights. And then once these insights become informed decisions, youth involved in startups can now launch startups and use technological innovation to solve these challenges. So it's really a chain rule of success if we look at it. And also we have that, the next gen initiative also mentors young women to take up leadership and technical roles. So we are not just relegating women to roles that we feel are of no importance or undervalued, but women are now leading, women are taking over also. These young professionals act as a bridge, understanding modern compliance and helping informal cooperatives professionalize. We also have knowledge transfer, as you said, one of the most important ways to make change is knowledge. You cannot change what you do not know. So knowledge transfer of educated youth now giving back, even in knowledge to other youth to help bring up the community, people that have technical expertise, introducing safer mineral processing techniques that eliminate mercury use, as some of our speakers have talked about, legal compliance, navigating the complex licensing and regulatory frameworks, and then implementing digital solutions for mapping, tracking production, and accessing markets. Also, moving the sector from just mere extraction to now local processing, now establishing community centers for cutting and polishing gemstones, retaining wealth. So we're not just extracting to import and to feed other nations, but now we are retaining wealth, locally processing these things and then seeing how we can um, convert these raw materials, convert these minerals into products that can still be useful in our community, the retention of wealth in our society and in Africa as a continent. Also, skill development, training women and youth in skills that would help, jewelry fabrication, things that can make our resource remain in-house. So the summary is that from diagnostic research to transformative action, that is the plan. So, for example, national mining censuses explicitly counting women and distinguishing the roles, including women first. Policy cannot support what it does not count, shifting the focus from purely observational studies to participatory action research, where researchers help co-design solutions alongside miners. And then also the university can integrate ASM modules into courses like geology, mining, engineering curricula to further boost that, knowledge and exposure to these things, ensuring that the next generation of professionals understand this sector's dynamics, leveraging the youth-led technological solutions for transparency and market access, then creating dedicated accelerators for youth startups, focusing on ESM challenges. So the conclusion is that transformation of artisanal mining in Africa is not just about minerals, it is about people. The research making the quote unquote invisible workforce of women now visible to policymakers and investors. And then youth acts as the engine, bringing digital literacy, innovation, and business acumen necessary to modernize these antiquated practices. And then women now act as the anchors of stability, reinvesting mining wealth into community health, education, and the local economy. So the research provides the map, the youth drives the vehicle, and women lead the journey. Thank you.